The night Emily Carter returned to her childhood home, the moon seemed unnaturally still in the sky, as if it were holding its breath along with her. She had not seen the old house in nearly 17 years, not since the night she was found wandering barefoot on the edge of Miller's Creek, with mud on her dress and blood on her hands, none of it hers. She had no memory of what happened that night. Only a single image had remained inside her mind, carved into the deepest part of her subconscious like the mark of a branding iron. A porcelain doll with cracked cheeks and eyes that reflected the moonlight like tiny crystals, watching her from the darkness. Chilling scares began long before Emily knew how to define fear. Back then, fear was simply a sensation, a tightening in her chest, a cold ripple under her skin, the feeling of being observed when she was alone. Now, as a grown woman, she knew fear had a shape. It could stand in a hallway. It could follow you. It could smile. The house looked exactly as she had dreaded it would, untouched, unmoved, and unchanged by time. The wooden porch still sagged slightly to the left, the paint still peeled like dry scales, and the windows, tall and narrow, still resembled blind eyes staring blankly into the night. She felt a twist in her stomach as she reached for the doorknob, which was cold, too cold, as if someone had just released their grip on it moments before she arrived. When the door creaked open, a wave of stale air drifted out, carrying with it the faint scent of old cedar, dust, and something else. Something sweet, like fading perfume. Emily stepped inside and instantly felt the temperature drop, as though the house resented warmth. Her flashlight beam swept across the living room, revealing sheets covering the furniture like pale ghosts frozen mid-movement. The wallpaper had browned and peeled in long strips, curling like dead leaves, but everything was in the same position she remembered. Even the old rocking chair in the corner still faced the fireplace, as if waiting for someone who had never returned. Emily swallowed. "It's just a house," she whispered to herself. Her voice echoed faintly, as though the walls were repeating her words in a mocking tone. Then she heard it, a soft tapping sound from upstairs, rhythmic, slow, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. Her breath caught in her throat. It sounded like something tiny, something fragile, hitting the wooden floor. She remembered that sound. She remembered it vividly, though she didn't want to. It was the sound the doll used to make whenever it fell, or whenever it moved. Emily shook her head sharply, refusing to let her imagination control her. She had come here to face the past, not run from echoes of it. She moved deeper into the house, her footsteps muffled by the dust-covered carpet. She stopped at the foot of the staircase. The tapping had ceased, but she could feel something, some subtle shift in the air, an awareness. It was the same sensation she used to have as a child, the one that made her sleep with the lights on for years. The feeling of being watched. She hesitated before placing her foot on the first step. The wooden plank groaned loudly under her weight, the sound stretching unnaturally long, like something exhaling. Halfway up, she felt the temperature drop again. The air grew denser, colder, as if the shadows were thickening around her. Emily tightened her grip on the flashlight. When she reached the top, she noticed something odd. The hallway light bulb, though dusty and yellowed, flickered weakly, even though she hadn't turned on any power. The electricity should not have been working. The house had been abandoned for over a decade. The tapping resumed. This time, it came from the room at the end of the hallway, her old bedroom. Her lungs tightened as a memory forced itself through the fog of her childhood. Her mother screaming her name, the sound of shattering glass, the taste of iron on her tongue, and the doll sitting on her desk, head tilted, hair matted with dirt. She pushed the memory away and approached the door, which was slightly ajar. A soft, warm light seeped through the crack, flickering like candlelight, but she had not lit any candles. Emily pushed the door open slowly. Her bedroom was exactly as she had left it. The small white desk, the lace curtains, the pink rug, the shelves filled with books she never finished reading, and in the center of the room, illuminated by a glow that had no source, was the doll. Moonlight reflected off its porcelain face. A long crack ran from the corner of its right eye down to its chin, as though it had been crying. Its dress, once pale blue, was darker now, stained by age and something else she didn't want to identify. Emily froze. The doll was positioned upright, sitting perfectly still, hands placed gently on its lap. Its eyes, glassy and bright, seemed to lock onto hers the moment she stepped inside. Her flashlight flickered. The temperature dropped again sharply. She took one step back instinctively, but her heel hit something behind her. She spun around. Nothing, just the hallway. When she turned back, the doll was no longer sitting. It was standing, upright, small porcelain feet pressed onto the pink rug, leaving faint, powdery imprints. The crack on its face had deepened, splitting slightly, as if something beneath the porcelain was pushing outward. Emily's heart pounded violently. "This isn't real," she whispered, but the words felt hollow, thin, fragile. The doll took a step forward, a tiny scrape, like ceramic dragging gently across fabric. Emily stumbled backward, her flashlight beam tremoring wildly across the room. Then the doll spoke. Its voice wasn't mechanical. It wasn't a recording. It was the voice of a little girl, soft, trembling, almost pleading. "Why did you leave me, Emily?" Emily's blood turned to ice. The flashlight slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. The room plunged into darkness for a heartbeat before the weak hallway light spilled in again. The doll was closer now, so close she could see her reflection in its glossy eyes. Except her reflection wasn't mirroring her expression. Her reflection was smiling, a wide, unnatural smile. Emily gasped and stumbled toward the hallway, but the door slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls. The doll began to move faster, its steps short, quick, unnatural, like a spider skittering across a surface too smooth. Emily reached for the door handle, twisting it desperately, but it would not budge. Her breath fractured into broken sobs as she kicked the door, nails scraping against the wood. Behind her, the doll's voice softened, almost tender. "You came back for me." Now stay. Emily turned, and the last thing she saw before the lights blew out was the doll leaping toward her, arms stretched unnaturally wide, shadow stretching across the room like a claw. The darkness swallowed them both. Emily didn't remember hitting the floor. She only knew she was lying on the cold wooden boards when consciousness snapped back into her like a violent jolt. Her breath returned in short, sharp bursts, as if she had been drowning in something thicker than water. Darkness pressed against her skin, a dense and living darkness that hummed faintly, like distant whispering beneath the floorboards. For a moment, she couldn't move. Her limbs felt stiff, heavy, almost restrained. Then her senses started to bleed back in her heartbeat, pounding inside her skull. The faint metallic tang in the air, the tremor of cold slithering across her spine. She opened her eyes. The room was no longer her childhood bedroom. The walls had changed, warped. What had once been pink wallpaper decorated with small stars had decayed into long, vertical streaks of pulsing black, like veins crawling across dying skin. The floorboards beneath her felt damp, as though something living breathed just under the wood. And the doll. The doll was nowhere to be seen. A cold shudder rippled through her. She pushed herself up slowly, her head throbbing. Her throat was dry, scraped raw, like she had been screaming for hours. Yet she remembered no sound leaving her mouth. Her flashlight lay a few feet away, broken in half. The bulb flickered faintly, struggling to cling to life. Emily picked it up instinctively, knowing it was useless but desperate for the comfort of holding something familiar. A soft creaking echoed behind her. She whipped around. The rocking chair, the same one from the living room downstairs, except now it was here, in the corner of her distorted bedroom, and it was rocking slowly, deliberately, though there was no wind, no movement in the air. Back, forth, back, forth. Emily's breath faltered. With each movement of the chair, the darkness seemed to pulse, shrinking and expanding like the inhale and exhale of something enormous. She stepped toward it, each footstep trembling with dread. That was when she heard it, a tiny voice, soft, fragile, coming from the shadows beneath the bed. Emily. Her blood froze. Her pulse crashed like thunder in her ears. She knelt down, though every part of her screamed not to. Her trembling fingers lifted the edge of the mattress, peeling it back slowly. Blackness stared back at her, thick, motionless, alive. And then something moved. A porcelain hand slid forward from beneath the bed, dragging long streaks of dust with it. The tiny fingers curled slowly, one by one, as if waking from a long sleep. Then the head emerged. The doll's cracked face tilted, eyes gleaming like two shards of broken stars. But something was wrong. The crack that had once traced the right side of its cheek had widened drastically, exposing a hollow darkness beneath the porcelain surface, like a mouth forming where no mouth should be. The doll crawled toward her. Emily stumbled back in horror, scrambling to her feet as the porcelain creature pulled its body fully out from the shadows, its legs bent at wrong wrong angles, joints clicking softly like insects tapping against glass. "Stay," it whispered, voice dripping with a childlike sadness that felt rehearsed. Artificial. Emily's back hit the door. She twisted the knob desperately, but once again it didn't move, not even an inch. She tried again, and again, and again. Locked! The humming in the walls grew louder, vibrating in her bones. She turned back toward the doll. It had stopped crawling, but its head had tilted completely sideways. The crack in its face widened further, stretching into a grotesque expression that resembled a smile. "You came back," it said softly. Emily shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "I never meant to leave," she whispered, though she didn't know why she said it. The words felt like they belonged to the past, to a memory she had forgotten. The doll began to walk toward her. Its movements were smoother now, almost fluid, like something inside the porcelain shell had grown comfortable wearing it. Emily slammed her fist against the door. "Let me out." The doll stopped abruptly, its small glass eyes locked onto hers with a sudden intensity. The room's air shifted, pressing heavily against her chest. Then something else happened. The walls convulsed. The black veins running along them began to pulse faster, glowing faintly with a sickly purple light. They twisted and writhed, as though responding to the doll's presence. Emily watched in horror as sections of the wall began to peel away, revealing something underneath old drawings. Crude sketches of children, of a girl who looked exactly like her, of a doll with a cracked face, of a moon frozen in the sky. Drawings she had made as a child, drawings she didn't remember making. Memories surged up in fragments. Her mother's voice, a cold night, the sound of porcelain breaking, someone screaming her name, something grabbing her arm with icy fingers. Emily's vision blurred as panic flooded her. The doll took another step forward. Each step echoed like a slow heartbeat. Tap, tap, tap. Then the lights flickered violently. The room plunged into darkness for half a second, before flooding with unnatural white light so bright she winced. When her eyes adjusted, she realized with a jolt that the doll was no longer in front of her. It was gone. Silence fell, a silence so deep it made her ears ring. Emily pressed her body against the door, breathing rapidly, heart thundering. For a moment, she thought it was over. Then she felt it. A cold hand rested gently on her shoulder. Her scream tore through her throat as she spun around. Nothing, no one, just the warped room and its writhing walls. But the pressure remained on her shoulder, like invisible fingers. Small, child-sized, she slapped at her shoulder instinctively, but her hand passed through empty air. The pressure disappeared. That was when she heard the voice again. This time, it wasn't coming from one direction. It came from everywhere around her, beside her, behind her, inside her head. "Emily, do you remember what you promised me?" Her breath hitched sharply. Her vision dimmed. Her knees buckled. "What promise?" she whispered, choking on every word. The whispering multiplied hundreds of tiny, overlapping voices, all the same tone, all belonging to the same little girl. "You said you'd never leave me alone again. Not ever. Not ever." The floor beneath her began to crack open. Thin fractures spread like lightning, revealing a crimson glow beneath the boards. The air filled with a smell like burning wood and perfume. Emily took a step back from the fissure. A porcelain hand shot out of the crack, then another, then another. Dozens of tiny white hands clawed at the edges of the floor, pulling something massive upward, something made of porcelain, something shaped like the doll but far too large. A monstrous, twisted imitation with dozens of tiny faces growing along its torso, each face cracked, each set of eyes gleaming. Emily screamed and stumbled back, slamming her fists against the door again, her voice shredding with terror. The towering porcelain creature rose fully from the floor, its many faces whispering in unison. "You promised." The door behind Emily finally clicked, unlocked. She spun, tore it open, and flung herself into the hallway. Behind her, the whispers grew louder, angrier, echoing with inhuman hunger. The house had awakened, and it remembered everything. Emily sprinted down the hallway, barely aware of where she was going, only knowing she had to escape the room, escape the doll, escape whatever nightmare had crawled up from beneath the floor. Her feet slapped against the wooden boards, each impact echoing far louder than it should have, like the house was amplifying her panic for its own amusement. Behind her, the whispers chased her, not like voices carried by air, more like thoughts forced into her skull, clawing their way across her mind. "You can't leave me again. Why are you running? You promised. Emily, stay." She clamped her hands over her ears, but it did nothing. The voices burrowed deeper, growing sharper, heavier, as if the doll or whatever controlled it was tightening its grip around the inside of her head. Emily's lungs burned, her vision blurred. The hallway stretched ahead of her like a tunnel that refused to end. The floorboards warped beneath her, bending subtly, shifting their shape as she ran. She stumbled, catching herself against the wall. The wallpaper underneath her palm throbbed. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Emily jerked her hand away and gasped. The walls were changing again. The faded yellow wallpaper began to ripple like fabric, caught in a breeze she couldn't feel. Dark veins writhed beneath the surface, growing thicker, spreading like a sickness. The air grew humid, heavy, swallowing her breaths. She tried to move again, but the hallway twisted, literally twisted. The far end bent sideways, as if the entire house were bending its spine to look back at her. The ceiling dipped, the floor curved, paint cracked violently as the house contorted in a way no structure should ever be able to. Emily stumbled backward, pressing herself against the wall. No, this isn't real, she whispered, though she already knew the truth. It was real, too real. The house wasn't reacting to her fear, it was feeding on it. A low creaking sound rippled through the wood, like an enormous creature shifting its weight from beneath the floorboards. Dust fell from the ceiling in thin strands, drifting onto her hair and shoulders. Then, a crackling sound filled the air, sharp, loud, and abrupt. Crack, crack, crack. Emily spun toward the noise. The floorboards behind her were splitting open, long fissures stretching toward her like jagged claws, carving through the wood. From those cracks spilled porcelain, small white shards, smooth pieces, doll fragments. They poured across the floor like insects, skittering toward her feet. Emily kicked them away, but more emerged, pouring like a flood, forming a small pile that twitched, then trembled, and then rose. The shards fused together. A doll's face formed first, then its body, then another, and another. 3 porcelain dolls stood before her, each one stitched together by mismatched fragments, their faces crooked, their limbs bent at unnatural angles. Their eyes gleamed with a cold, metallic reflection. Emily screamed and sprinted again. The dolls followed, not walking, not crawling, but gliding. Their feet didn't touch the floor. They drifted across the hallway like ghosts wearing porcelain skins, their cracked faces smiling or twitching with every movement. Emily reached the staircase and practically threw herself onto the steps, sliding down 2 at a time. Her hands skimmed the railing, but the wood felt wet, sticky. She pulled her hand away and stared in horror. It was coated in something red, not blood, something thicker, something darker, something that smelled like old memories left to rot. She wiped her hand on her jeans, gagging, and pushed herself forward. She reached the bottom of the stairs and froze. The living room was no longer the living room. The sheets covering the furniture were gone. The fireplace had collapsed inward. The walls sagged as if melting. In the center of the room stood the rocking chair. Rocking, empty, slow. Back, forth, back, forth. Emily stepped backward instinctively, but the stairs behind her were gone. She spun around. Where the staircase had been was now a solid wall of black wood, pulsating faintly. The house wasn't just trapping her, it was rearranging itself around her. She stumbled into the living room, clutching her chest as panic clawed its way through her ribs. "Stop!" she screamed. The rocking chair stilled instantly. The entire house fell silent, unnaturally silent, as if her scream had frozen the air itself. Emily felt cold creep up her spine, chilling her bones. Then she realized she wasn't alone. A figure stood beside the rocking chair. A woman, tall, pale, translucent, almost like she was made of dust and moonlight. Her hair flowed behind her as though suspended underwater, and her eyes. Those eyes were hollow, but not empty. Hollow like a grave, filled with something waiting beneath. Emily's breath hitched. "Mom!" The figure tilted her head. Emily felt her throat tighten until it hurt. The woman's features weren't entirely solid, but they resembled her mother enough to trigger every painful memory she had buried. The trembling lips, the frightened eyes, the way her mother whispered her name before everything went dark that night. Emily took a slow step forward. The figure did not move. "Mom," Emily whispered again, voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what happened. I don't remember." The woman blinked once, then slowly. Her mouth opened, but the voice that came out wasn't her mother's. It was the doll's voice. "Why did you leave me?" Emily stumbled back, horror crawling up her throat like bile. The woman's jaw unhinged wider, too wide, snapping like brittle bone. Cracks spread across her face like porcelain under pressure. Her eyes rolled upward until only the whites showed, and from her mouth spilled porcelain shards. Dozens, hundreds, pouring onto the floor, forming the shape of a doll at her feet. Emily cried out and turned, running blindly toward the hallway. But the hallway wasn't a hallway anymore. It was a tunnel, a narrow, suffocating tunnel lined with shelves. Shelves filled with dolls, hundreds of porcelain dolls staring at her, their faces cracked, their eyes gleaming, some headless, some with limbs twisted like branches, all whispering in tiny, overlapping voices. Promise, promise, promise. Emily's knees nearly buckled. No, no, please, please stop. The dolls all turned their heads in unison. The sound of porcelain grinding against porcelain filled the air like a storm of teeth. Then, somewhere behind the wall of whispering dolls, a deeper voice rumbled. Not the voice of a child, not the voice of a woman, but something older, something buried beneath the house. Emily, she froze. The dolls stopped whispering. Silence. The air thickened until she could barely breathe. Then the voice spoke again. You came back. The ceiling cracked open above her. Screams poured down from the darkness, and something massive moved in the shadows overhead. Emily didn't wait to see what it was. She bolted down the tunnel, even though the doll's eyes followed her, even though the porcelain hands reached for her ankles, even though the house groaned like it was inhaling. She ran because she finally remembered why she left this house long ago. Something in this place wanted her, and it had waited 17 years for her return. Emily didn't know how long she had been running. Time in the house didn't move normally. Every second stretched like rubber, every heartbeat echoing like a distant drum. The tunnel of dolls seemed endless, spiraling deeper into the house's belly, narrowing until the shelves nearly brushed her shoulders. The whispers behind her grew louder. Not one voice, not dozens, hundreds. A crowd of porcelain thoughts scraping inside her skull. Promise, promise, don't leave. Stay with us. Stay. The shelves shook violently, sending porcelain dolls crashing to the floor. Limbs snapped, faces shattered. Glass eyes rolled across the boards like marbles chasing her heels. Emily stumbled but didn't stop. Then the tunnel abruptly ended. She burst into a pitch-black room. For a split second, the darkness swallowed her completely. No walls, no floor, no ceiling, just void, cold, suffocating void pressing against her skin like a second layer of flesh. Then the lights flickered on. Emily gasped because she knew this room, her old playroom, a place she hadn't stepped inside since she was 8 years old. A place sealed off after that night, the night she lost her memory. But now the room was back exactly as it had been all those years ago. Small wooden chairs, a faded rug shaped like a white moon, a toy chest painted with stars, and drawings taped across the walls. Drawings she made as a child, yet now they were smeared, distorted, dripping like wet ink sliding down the paper. Emily stepped forward cautiously. Every instinct told her to leave, but she couldn't. Something in the room tugged at her mind, a familiar coldness she had felt only once. The night her childhood ended, her eyes drifted to the far wall. One drawing stood alone, a child's depiction of a girl girl with black hair and a blue dress, but the face was gone, erased violently, leaving only a deep gouge torn into the paper. Emily touched the drawing gently. The paper pulsed beneath her fingers. A heartbeat, her pulse quickened. What is this place? A voice answered, not whispered, not distant, clear, sharp, standing right behind her. This is where you left me. Emily spun around so fast she nearly lost her balance. The porcelain doll stood in the center of the rug, its face cracked open farther, exposing a void inside, dark, swirling, almost liquid. The crack had widened into a vertical grin that split its face from cheek to chin. Its glass eyes shone brighter than before, glowing like icy embers. Emily backed away. No, stay back. The doll tilted its head. You forgot me once. It whispered. You forgot everything. Emily's throat tightened. Who are you? She choked out. What do you want from me? The doll took one step forward. The floor vibrated as though something massive moved beneath it. I was your friend, it said. You made me. You brought me to life. And then you tried to kill me. Emily's stomach dropped. I never. Yes, the doll whispered. You did. On a night just like this one, when the moon stayed still. Its voice cracked with a cold rage. You threw me into the fire. Emily shook her head violently. No, I was a child. I don't remember. You do remember. The doll hissed. I'll help you. The lights went out. Absolute darkness swallowed the room. Emily couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. The air tightened like invisible hands squeezing around her ribs. Then, a flash, a memory surged into her mind uninvited. Sharp, painful. She saw herself at 8 years old, clutching the doll tightly. She saw her mother grabbing her, screaming words she couldn't hear. She saw the fireplace, the flames roaring unnaturally bright. She saw herself lifting the doll with shaking hands, face drenched in tears. Then the memory shattered. Emily collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. Stop. Stop, please. The doll's voice slithered through the dark. You tried to burn me. Do you know what fire feels like when you're meant to live forever? The floorboards beneath Emily split apart with a groaning crack. A faint red glow seeped from below, like the same fire from her memory still burned beneath the house. Waiting, Emily crawled backward, gasping, but the darkness pressed against her skin like a living weight. A soft humming began in the walls. Then the voice changed deeper, older, layered with something inhuman. She broke her promise. Another voice joined it. We waited 17 years. Another. She belongs to us. The playroom shook violently. The wooden chairs toppled on their sides. The drawings peeled off the walls and crumpled in the air, as though pulled by unseen hands. The toy chest rattled and burst open, scattering broken toys across the floor. Emily pushed herself to her feet, heart pounding. The doll's glow brightened. Its body crackled, porcelain splitting, revealing tiny black tendrils beneath the surface. Like veins filled with ink, it lifted its head slowly. Do you want to remember now? The doll asked softly. Emily shook her head, but the memory tore into her anyway. She saw the night again clearer now. Her mother screaming, something banging on the walls. Emily holding the doll, no, not just holding it, fighting it. The doll's face twitching, its eyes glowing for the first time, its arms tightening around her neck, her small nails digging into its porcelain body, her screams echoing through the house. Then the fire. She had thrown the doll into the fire. She remembered it now. She remembered everything. The room snapped back to the present. The doll stepped closer. "You burned me," it whispered, voice trembling with fury and grief. "But I learned something in the fire." Emily felt her skin crawl. "What did you learn?" The doll's face split completely open. "That fire doesn't kill what you create." The floor exploded. A massive porcelain hand burst upward from the glowing crack, fingers long and sharp like knife blades. It reached for her, scraping deep grooves into the air. Emily screamed and leaped away just as the hand clawed the rug, shredding it. She sprinted to the door, except there was no door, just a wall, a solid wall where the door used to be. "No, no," she cried, slamming her fists into the wood. Behind her, the porcelain hand rose higher. Another hand followed, then another. Something huge crawled up from the floor, pulling its enormous porcelain body upward. A monstrous creature patched together from broken doll fragments. Its many faces whispered in unison, "You promised you'd never leave." Emily pressed her back against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. The doll stood in front of the creature, glowing like a beacon in the dark room. The doll whispered, "Remember her name." The walls answered, "Emily." Every drawer flew open. Every chair slammed against the ceiling. Every light shattered in a burst of sparks. The room twisted violently, spinning around her like a carousel, losing control. Emily covered her ears and screamed. The house wasn't just alive. It was remembering. It was remembering her, and it wanted her back forever. Emily couldn't tell which way the room was spinning up, down, sideways, because the world had lost its rules. Her stomach lurched as the playroom twisted violently around her, the floor bending like soft rubber beneath a storm. Every object that belonged to her childhood now floated in the air, orbiting in slow, sickening circles. The toy chest spun like a carousel. The wooden chairs rotated like vultures circling prey. Shredded pieces of paper, her old drawings spiraled around her head like a swarm of angry insects. The monstrous porcelain creature crawling out of the glowing fissure beneath the floor was still rising. Its body towered over her, built from thousands of doll fragments fused together, faces upon faces, limbs upon limbs, each one whispering her name in different tones. "Emily, Emily, Emily." The sound rattled her bones. The smaller doll stood at the center of the chaos, perfectly still, glowing with an icy white light. The cracks on its face spread with each passing second, revealing more of the swirling darkness underneath the porcelain. "You see," it whispered, "this house remembers everything, and now you do too." Emily pressed her back harder into the wall, desperately searching for an escape, a window, a door, a crack, anything. But the room had sealed itself shut, trapping her like an insect inside a jar. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, voice trembling. "I was just a child. I didn't understand what you were." The doll's head rotated unnaturally, spinning nearly halfway around before stopping. "You created me," it answered softly. "You gave me life the night you made your wish." Emily blinked through panic, struggling to make sense of the words. "What wish?" The doll stepped closer. "Do you really not remember?" it asked, voice now layered childlike, but with a deep echo beneath. "You wished for a friend who would never leave, a friend who would protect you, a friend who would love you even after everyone else forgot." Emily shook her head violently. "No, I never." "Yes, you did," the doll said, "and I heard you." The lights flickered, the floorboards groaned. The monstrous figure rising from the fissure lifted its massive head, if it had a head, and stared at her with dozens of glass eyes embedded into its surface. Emily felt her pulse stop for half a second. "I didn't mean for any of this," she whispered. "I didn't know you were alive. You didn't want me to be alive," the creature hissed, dozens of voices overlapping in a dissonant choir. "You tried to kill me." The memory slammed into Emily like a wave. The fireplace, the flames roaring, her mother's scream, her own hands forcing the doll into the fire as shadows crawled up the walls, the doll's face glowing orange, cracking, twisting, and then the house shaking as though something inside it had awakened. Emily stumbled forward, clutching her head. "I didn't know. I didn't understand what you were. I just wanted you to stop." The doll's glow brightened. "I didn't want to stop," it whispered. "I wanted to stay with you forever." The room fell still. Everything, chairs, drawings, broken toys hung frozen in midair, suspended as if time itself had paused to watch. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks echoed through the walls deep, booming, like something massive was tapping with deliberate patience. Emily froze. The monstrous porcelain creature flinched, as though the knocks startled even it. The doll's glow faltered. "No," it whispered, "not now." Knock, knock. The walls bulged outward, distorting like something enormous was pushing its way through from the other side. Emily's breath caught in her throat. What is that?" The doll didn't answer. The walls cracked. Splits formed like lightning bolts across the surface. Dust rained from the ceiling. The knocking grew louder, faster, more urgent. "Knock, knock, knock, knock." The porcelain creature shifted backward nervously, thousands of tiny faces on its body blinking rapidly in confusion. Emily took a step away from the wall. She didn't know what was coming through, but she knew it was worse, far worse. The doll raised its arms as if to shield itself. "Emily," it whispered, voice trembling for the first time. "You need to listen. You need to." The wall exploded inward. Something crashed into the room, splintering wood, shattering furniture, sending fragments flying like shrapnel. Emily dropped to the floor, covering her head. Dust filled the air. When she lifted her head, a tall figure stood in the gaping hole. Not a creature, not a ghost. A man, but not fully human. His skin glowed faintly orange, flickering like embers under ash. Flames slithered beneath the surface of his veins like molten fire. His eyes burned with deep, furious light. Emily gasped in disbelief. "Dad!" The figure stepped forward, each step leaving scorch marks on the warped floorboards. He didn't look at her. He looked at the doll. "You," he growled, voice deep and trembling with barely contained rage. The doll backed away slowly. "You shouldn't be here," it whispered. Her father raised his hand. Fire bloomed in his palm like a living creature. "You should have stayed in the fire where you belong." The porcelain creature screeched in terror and retreated, crawling back toward the fissure. Emily stared, speechless. What are you?" she whispered. Her father turned his burning eyes toward her. "I'm what the fire made me," he said, "and I'm here because you're in danger." The doll shrieked. "You can't take her. She belongs to me. She made me. She promised." Her father unleashed a burst of flame. The fire struck the doll, sending it flying across the room. The porcelain cracked violently, pieces falling away. The glow inside it sputtered like a dying star. "No!" the doll screamed. "You can't kill me again. I won't let you take her." Her father stepped in front of Emily, shielding her with his burning body. "You never should have come back," he said coldly. The walls rumbled, dust fell in thick clouds. The fissure beneath the floor widened, spewing heat like a furnace breathing. The doll rose again, trembling, smoke trailing from its cracked body. "You can burn me," it hissed, "but the house will always bring me back." Her father narrowed his burning eyes. "Then we burn the house." Emily's heart stopped. The house screamed. The porcelain creature lunged. The doll shrieked. Flames ignited across the floor. Shadows writhed like living nightmares. And for the first time since she arrived, Emily understood. This wasn't just a haunting. This was a war she started 17 years ago. And the house hadn't forgotten. Not her wish, not her betrayal, and not her promise. The room trembled like a living thing caught between fury and fear. Emily shielded her face as burning debris rained from the ceiling. The walls bellowed with a deep, animalistic groan like the entire house was waking up, stretching its ribs, preparing to fight back. Her father stood between her and the burning chaos, his entire body flickering with molten heat. Flames rippled beneath his skin, rolling like liquid fire inside a fragile shell of flesh. The porcelain doll staggered backward, clutching the cracks spreading through its body. "You shouldn't be here," the doll screamed at him. "You're not supposed to exist outside the fire." Her father's voice echoed like a furnace roaring. "I didn't choose this." He pointed a blazing finger at the doll. "You did." The porcelain monster, the towering fusion of countless doll fragments, lunged forward, its enormous limbs crashing through furniture, smashing into the playroom floor. Emily dove aside as a massive porcelain arm slammed into the wall, crushing the wooden panels like paper. The entire room lit up in orange. Her father hurled another torrent of fire. The porcelain creature shrieked, recoiling as molten heat melted sections of its body, sending liquefied ceramic dripping to the ground like burning wax. But the house reacted instantly. The walls pulsed, the floor rippled, the ceiling moaned. Rivers of black tendrils surged from the cracks coiling around the porcelain beast, cooling the melted parts, rebuilding it with terrifying speed. The tendrils stitched new faces onto its surface, each one shrieking with tiny, distorted voices. Emily gasped. The house isn't just alive. It was healing the creature. Her father turned sharply. Emily, listen to me. The house is tied to your wish. It won't let either of us destroy it unless you break the bond. Emily felt her heart stop. I don't understand. You will, he said. You have to. The porcelain monster roared and swung a massive arm toward them. Her father caught the blow with both hands. Flames erupted from his fingers, melting the porcelain limb instantly. The creature shrieked and retracted its arm, molten ceramic splattering across the room. But the doll, the small one, the first one, was already moving. It darted across the floor, its tiny feet clicking like glass tapping on tile. Smoke curled from its cracked body as it pointed its jagged grin toward Emily. You belong here, Emily, it whispered. With me. Emily stumbled backward until her shoulders hit the wall. Her hands groped behind her, searching desperately for a door, but the wood felt like warm skin, pulsing gently, almost breathing. Stop, she whimpered. Stay. The doll whispered again, its voice soft, pleading, almost loving. Her father turned and blasted a wave of fire toward the doll, but the house reacted instantly. The tendrils snaked from the ceiling, absorbing the flames, swallowing them whole, turning the fire into smoke that spread through the room like a choking fog. Her father staggered, coughing. They're stealing my fire, he growled. The house, it's feeding on it. Emily saw his form flicker, his glowing veins dimming. No, she cried. Don't hurt him. The doll tilted its head. Why not? He ruined everything. The fissure beneath the floor widened suddenly, spewing molten heat. Shadows slithered out, wrapping around Emily's ankles like cold fingers. She screamed and kicked, but they tightened, dragging her toward the glowing crack. No, no! She clawed at the floor, her nails ripping painfully. Her father lunged toward her, but more tendrils wrapped around his arms, pulling him backward. The fire under his skin dimmed further, flickering weakly like a dying candle. The porcelain monster rose higher, towering to the ceiling, its many faces twisted and contorted, some crying, some laughing, some whispering Emily's name. The house boomed with thunderous force. Emily felt the shadows pulling harder. Down, down, into the fissure where the fire never died. Let her go, her father roared, summoning all remaining fire into his hands. He slammed both fists into the floor. A massive shockwave of flames erupted outward, pure, blinding orange light. The tendrils evaporated. The shadows disintegrated. Emily coughed as the force threw her backward. Her father collapsed onto one knee, his flames sputtering. He was losing strength. Fast! The doll stepped closer, cracking with every step. You can't stop me, it whispered. She made me. Her wish is written in the walls. Emily's breath trembled. What wish? I don't remember making any wish. The doll's grin widened. Yes, you do. The room shifted abruptly. The walls peeled back like curtains. The ceiling lifted like a stage set. The floor dissolved beneath her feet. Reality changed. Emily found herself standing in a small bedroom, her childhood bedroom. Clean, bright, safe. A younger version of herself sat on the bed, legs dangling, staring at the doll sitting on her lap. The little girl whispered something, soft, hopeful, lonely. I wish you were real, so you'd never leave me. Emily felt the words pierce into her chest like knives. The memory faded. The room dissolved. The playroom returned. Emily staggered. No, I didn't know. You wished me real, the doll whispered. So I became real. Her father breathed heavily, flames dimming. Emily, you can break it. Only you. The porcelain monster's massive shadow eclipsed the room as it leaned forward, its many faces chanting, "Stay, stay, stay." Emily pressed a trembling hand against her chest. I take it back, she whispered. The house fell silent. The doll froze. What? It whispered. Emily drew a shaky breath. I take back the wish. I release you. The doll's glow flickered. No, you can't. You're not my wish anymore, Emily said, voice trembling but firm. You're not my friend. You're not real to me. The house screamed. The porcelain creature convulsed violently, its faces splitting and melting. The tendrils recoiled from the walls. The fissure howled like it was losing something vital. The doll staggered. You lied, it whispered, voice cracking like shattered porcelain. You promised. Emily shook her head. I was just a child. I didn't know what I was creating. The doll screamed in agony. Its cracks spider-webbed across its entire body. Light burst from inside it, white, violent, blinding. Her father shielded her with his fading fire. The entire room exploded with light. The explosion of white light tore through the room like a violent sunrise. Emily felt its heat, its pulse, its weight, like the house was being ripped inside out. Her vision blurred into streaks of color and shadow, and for a moment, she couldn't tell if she was falling, floating, or simply dissolving. The screams of the porcelain monster faded first, its many whispering faces erupting into dust. Then the cracking of splintering wood followed, as the house convulsed violently, beams groaning like dying bones. Then silence, a silence so deep it swallowed sound itself. Emily slowly opened her eyes. She was lying on her back in what looked like a long, hollow room. The floor beneath her was no longer wood, but something pale, smooth, almost stone-like. She sat up, wincing as the air shifted like a cold breath brushing past her ear. The room was impossibly empty. No furniture, no doors, no windows, just a long corridor stretching endlessly in both directions. Her father was nowhere in sight. Dad? Her voice echoed strangely, bouncing off the barren walls like distant whispers mimicking her. No answer, no movement. Her chest tightened. Emily stood up slowly, her legs trembling. The air had a strange weight, thick with the smell of charred wood and old fabric. She reached out and touched the wall. It pulsed beneath her fingers, low, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. She jerked her hand back. No, we ended there. I broke the wish. You're supposed to be gone. The hallway dimmed. Shadows thickened, twisting toward her like ink dispersing in water. Then, tap, tap, tap. Footsteps, small ones, light, deliberate, coming from behind her. Emily's pulse spiked. She spun around. The doll stood at the far end of the corridor. Except it wasn't the doll anymore. Its body was cracked open from the inside. Porcelain falling away in flakes. Beneath the broken surface was something dark and writhing, like threads of shadow flowing through an invisible shell. Its once vibrant glow was fading, like a dying ember fighting its last breath, yet its eyes burned brighter than ever. "You can't erase me," it whispered, voice hollow, distorted. "You didn't revoke the wish. You only wounded it." Emily stepped back. "No, I broke the bond. I released you." The doll staggered forward, each step leaving trails of darkness on the pale floor. "No," it hissed. "What you released was the house, and now it has no name." Emily froze. What does that mean? The doll stretched its arms outward, fingers falling off like ceramic petals. A house without a name becomes a hunger, a void. It devours what created it. The corridor trembled violently. Emily gripped the wall to keep herself upright as the ground buckled beneath her. Boom, boom, boom. Each tremor felt like something enormous walking just beneath the floor, its heavy steps traveling through the hollow chamber. Then she heard it. "Emily," her father's voice. Raw, desperate, tinged with flame. "Dad," she screamed, sprinting down the corridor. But the hall stretched infinitely, lengthening with every step she took. The walls warped, curving, distorting like melting plastic. Her feet pounded against the pale floor, yet the distant echo of her father's voice never grew closer. "Emily, don't let it take you." She pushed harder, tears burning in her eyes. "Dad, where are you?" The doll's voice shifted behind her, no longer pleading, no longer childish. Now it was ancient. "You can't run from it. You made it. It was born from your loneliness, shaped by your wish, fed by your fear. This place exists because of you." Emily spun around, breath shaking. "I didn't mean to create anything. I was a child, and children create monsters all the time." The doll whispered, "Monsters they forget, but monsters that never forget them." The corridor rumbled again. From the ceiling, cracks spread like lightning. Through the gaps, she glimpsed something enormous pressing downward, something with no face, no form, just pure darkness swirling with memories that weren't hers. "What is that?" she whispered. The doll smiled through its broken jaw. "That is the house without a name, and it wants you back." The floor beneath Emily's feet dissolved. She screamed as she fell into a pit of spiraling darkness. Memories collided around her, her mother's voice, her childhood laughter, the sound of the doll's first word, the roar of fire, the shattering of porcelain. Then she hit the ground, hard. Pain blasted through her knees and palms. She gasped and looked around. She was in the living room again, but not as it had been. The walls were skeletal frames. The fireplace burned with black flames. The air shimmered with heat and shadow. Her father lay on the floor, barely conscious, his body dimming like a dying ember, his skin cracked, glowing faintly under ash. He lifted his head weakly. "Emily." She crawled toward him. "Dad." "I'm here, please. Stay with me." He grabbed her wrist, heat radiating through his fading fingers. "You have to finish it," he rasped. "The house. It's feeding on the broken wish. You must destroy its core." Emily swallowed hard. "What core?" He pointed with trembling fingers toward the fireplace, toward the center of the black flames. "There." Emily's breath hitched. The dark fire twisted like a living throat, swallowing the room in smoke and shadow. From within the flames, the shape of a doorway flickered, a door made of bone-white porcelain. The doll appeared beside the fireplace, broken form trembling. "You can't open it," it warned. "If you do, everything ends me. The house. And you." Emily wiped her tears. "Maybe that's the only way any of us get free." The doll's eyes dimmed, cracks spreading like frost across its face. "You promised you'd never leave me." Emily stood slowly, facing the porcelain doorway inside the fire. "I was a child," she whispered. "But now I choose to leave." The doll screamed, a sound of heartbreak mixed with fury, as Emily stepped into the black flames. The doorway pulsed, the house growled, the world shattered. The moment Emily stepped into the black flames, the world folded inward like a collapsing lung. Heat was everywhere on her skin, in her throat, inside her bones. Yet it didn't burn. It felt familiar, like something inside the fire recognized her. The porcelain doorway in front of her glowed brighter as she approached, pulsing with a ghostly white light that cut through the swirling darkness. The air crackled with distant whispers, voices she had heard her whole life but never understood. They echoed from every direction, rising and falling like a chorus calling her name. "Emily, Emily, Emily." The fire swirled around her feet, twisting like hands pulling her deeper, guiding her. For a moment, she swore the flames formed shapes, small faces watching her, their expressions shifting between sorrow and hunger. She swallowed hard and pressed forward. As she reached the porcelain door, she noticed something carved into its surface. Thin lines forming symbols, circles, and tiny shapes. At first, the carvings seemed random, but as the light flickered across them, she realized they were drawings. Her drawings, childhood sketches she had long forgotten. A crooked house with too many windows, a smiling girl, a doll with empty eyes, her shaky breath fogged in front of her. This is my memory. But this door wasn't just made of porcelain. It was made of her. She reached out slowly. Her fingers touched the cool, smooth surface, and the door reacted instantly. A shockwave of cold shot through her arm, racing up to her shoulder. The air thinned. The room spun. The doorway flashed violently with light. Then a voice spoke behind her. "You don't have to do this." Emily turned. The doll stood at the edge of the black flames, its small body trembling, cracks spreading across its entire surface like frost overtaking glass. Its face was barely holding together. One of its eyes had fallen out. dangling from a thin tether of melted material. Darkness pulsed inside its hollow cracks, but its voice sounded almost human. "I know you're afraid," it whispered. "I know you think I'm the monster, but I only became what you made me." Emily clenched her fists. "I made a mistake. I was lonely. I was a child, but that doesn't mean I should live in fear of that mistake forever." The doll stepped closer, dragging its broken leg behind it with a soft scrape. "I never wanted to hurt you, Emily. I only wanted what you asked for. To stay, to protect, to be real." Emily shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "No, you wanted to control me, to keep me here. You tried to trap me." The doll tilted its head, porcelain cracking. "That's because the house needs you. Without you, it has no shape, no purpose, no name." Emily's pulse quickened. "So this place, it keeps existing because I wished you alive?" "Yes." The doll's voice softened, almost pleading. "If you open that door, it will end everything. Me, this house, your father, you." Her breath caught in her throat. Her father. She turned back toward the doorway, heart pounding. "What's behind this door?" she whispered. The doll's remaining eye flickered. "Truth," it said, "and the end." Emily touched the porcelain again. This time, she didn't hesitate. The door cracked beneath her fingers, thin fractures spider-webbing outward. A deep rumbling echoed through the darkness, like the groan of a dying creature. The black flames dimmed, shrinking back as though afraid. The doll screamed. "No, stop. You don't know what you're doing." Emily pressed harder. The cracks spread further. The ground shook violently. Fire erupted at her feet. From somewhere deep within the house, she heard her father's voice shouting, "Open it, Emily, finish it." She pushed with both hands this time, tears streaming down her face. The porcelain door split open. Light burst outward. Not white, not black, but every color she had ever drawn as a child. Red, blue, yellow, pink, gold, swirling into a violent storm. The force threw her backward. She hit the ground hard, sliding across the pale floor as wind roared through the corridor beyond the flames. Her hair whipped around her face, her lungs filled with searing heat. The doll shrieked, "No, no! You'll unmake me. You'll unmake everything." The door swung open fully, and behind it lay a different world. It wasn't a room. It wasn't a memory. It wasn't even a place. It was her mind, her forgotten wishes, her fears, her loneliness, her guilt, all swirling like a living storm. Emily stared, speechless. At the center of the swirling chaos hovered a single object, a small, glowing orb the size of a child's heart, pulsing softly, warm, alive. The doll gasped, voice trembling. "The core," it whispered. "The first spark of your wish, the thing that gave me life. If you destroy that, I disappear." Emily stepped forward toward the orb, the true heart of the house. Her father's voice echoed faintly through the whirl of colors. "Destroy it, Emily." She reached out her hand. The doll crawled toward her, dragging itself through collapsing shadows. "Don't leave me again," it cried. Emily closed her eyes. "I release you." Her hand touched the orb. It burst. Light swallowed everything. The doll screamed. The house roared. Emily felt herself falling into silence. Emily didn't feel her body at first. There was no falling, no ground, no air, no heat, no cold, only a soft, infinite darkness that stretched in every direction. A darkness that felt strangely familiar, like the space between dreams where memories go to die. Her heartbeat echoed faintly, slow, uneven, as if trying to remember how to keep her alive. A distant voice drifted toward her, carried by nothing. Emily. She opened her eyes. There was no light yet she could see. The void shifted like ink drifting through water, forming shapes that dissolved as quickly as they appeared. Her hands were weightless. Her hair floated around her like smoke. She felt lighter than she ever had, untethered, unbound. "Where am I?" she whispered. The darkness reacted, rippling outward in circles as if the void itself heard her and breathed in response. Then the voice returned, much closer now. "You're in the place between." Emily spun around, but there was no around. The void didn't have directions. Still, a figure emerged from the darkness, forming piece by piece. Her father. He stood only a few feet away, his body dim, no longer flickering with fire, but glowing faintly like dying embers beneath ash. "Dad," Emily whispered, tears burning her eyes. "You're here." He smiled weakly, sadness weighing down his expression. "I've been here for a long time." Emily frowned. "But I saw you. You were in the house. You saved me. I wasn't truly there," he said softly. "Only what remained of me. My body burned that night when you threw the doll into the fire. I tried to pull you away, but the house took me instead." Her throat tightened painfully. "I didn't know. I didn't remember." "You weren't meant to remember," he said gently. "The house took your memories to keep you from destroying it. Your wish kept you bound." Emily looked at the darkness swirling around them. "So this void is part of the house." He shook his head. "No, this is the space that existed before the house, before the doll, before the wish. It's the place where forgotten things go, where broken creations rest." Emily swallowed. "And the house, it's collapsing," her father said, slowly, painfully. "You destroyed the core, but the house still has one last anchor." "What anchor?" He looked at her with eyes full of sorrow. "You." A cold shiver crawled through her. "If you stay tied to this place," he continued, "the house will rebuild itself from you, from your fear. It will grow again, and the doll, even shattered, will reform from your shadow." Emily stepped backward instinctively, but she didn't move at all. The void didn't allow movement. It only allowed intention. "I don't want that," she whispered. "I want it to end. I want all of this to end." "Then you must let go," her father said. "Let go of what?" "Your fear, your guilt, your wish." Emily shook her head frantically. "I already broke the wish. Breaking it isn't enough." His voice deepened. "You must release yourself from it." Emily felt pressure behind her, a presence she recognized instantly. The doll. It drifted into view, or rather, formed from the swirling void like a memory refusing to die. But it was no longer porcelain, no longer solid. It was shadow wrapped in the faint outline of its former shape. Its voice trembled. "You said you would never leave me." Emily stepped closer, fear now mixed with pity. "You aren't real," she whispered. "You never were. You were just my loneliness given shape." The doll's form cracked, fragments of shadow drifting away. "But I loved you," it said, voice breaking like glass. "I protected you when no one else would. You trapped me," Emily whispered. "You took my childhood, my father, my life." The doll's shadow face twisted with grief. "I didn't know how to be anything except what you made me." The void darkened. Everything around them pulsed. Her father's glow dimmed further. "Emily," he said urgently, "you must choose now." Emily looked between them, her father fading, the doll dissolving, and the void whispering her name from every direction. "What happens if I let go?" she asked softly. "You wake up," he said, "in the real world, without the house, without the doll, without me." Her breath caught. "And if I don't let go, then you stay here," her father said. "The house reforms around you, the doll lives again, and you remain trapped forever." Emily's heart shattered. She turned to her father. "Come with me. Please come home with me." He smiled gently. "I haven't had a home since the fire." Tears streamed down her face. "And the doll," Emily whispered. The shadow doll trembled violently, barely holding its shape. "If you leave," it whispered, "I disappear." Emily stepped toward it, placing a gentle hand where its cheek once was. "You were never meant to be real," she said softly, "and that isn't your fault." The doll's shadow cracked entirely, pieces falling away like petals. "I'm scared," it whispered. Emily closed her eyes. "So am I." She took a deep breath. "I let you go." The doll exploded into dust, silent, peaceful, gone. The void roared. Her father placed a warm hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he whispered. Emily sobbed. "Dad, I don't want to lose you again." He pulled her into a final embrace, warm, steady, filled with love she thought she'd never feel again. "You're not losing me," he said. "You're letting me rest." His body dissolved slowly into soft sparks of light. Emily reached out desperately. "Dad, please." "Love," he whispered, "for both of us." Then he was gone. The void imploded. Emily felt herself rising, weight returning, air filling her lungs, light flooding her vision. And then she woke up. Emily gasped as her lungs filled with real air cold, sharp, heavy with dust. The weight of her body crashed back into her like an avalanche. Her fingers curled against something rough, solid, the ground, wooden floorboards, but not the warped, pulsing boards of the house's twisted versions. These were normal, old, yes, dusty, yes, but still and lifeless the way wood should be. She blinked rapidly as the world came into focus. She was lying on the floor of her childhood home, the real one, not the nightmare version the house had become inside her mind. Sunlight filtered through the cracked windows, thin and pale as bone. Dust drifted lazily through the beams of light. For the first time in what felt like years, the air didn't hum with whispers or pulse with hidden life. It was quiet, silent, still. The house was dead. Emily slowly pushed herself up, her limbs shaking from exhaustion and shock. A throbbing ache pulsed through her skull, but her mind felt clearer than it had in years. She looked around. Her bedroom, the real bedroom, was empty. The furniture had long been removed. The floor was bare except for a few scraps of wallpaper hanging like peeling skin from the walls. No dolls, no cracks glowing with red fire, no tendrils crawling beneath the surface. Just an abandoned room collecting dust. Emily wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady her breathing. "It's over," she whispered, but even saying the words out loud felt fragile, tentative, like a wish made of glass. She stood on shaky legs and slowly walked down the hallway. Every step echoed hollowly, a reminder that the house was no longer alive, no longer listening. The hallway was exactly as she remembered from years ago. Small, narrow, unremarkable. She reached the staircase, gripping the railing out of habit. It didn't pulse. It didn't shift. It didn't drip black liquid. It was just wood. Her chest tightened as she descended, each step bringing her closer to the truth she'd been terrified to face since awakening. Was her father truly gone? Had she only spoken with a memory, a spirit, a fragment left behind? Or had he never left this house, trapped between the world and the void? Until she broke the wish. The living room was cold. The fireplace sat dark and empty, filled with ash that hadn't been disturbed in years. The rocking chair was overturned on its side, broken from age, not from supernatural force. Emily approached the fireplace slowly. She knelt down, brushing her fingers through the cold ashes. "Dad?" Her voice cracked with fragile hope. Nothing answered. No glow, no warmth, no fading ember, just silence. A tear rolled down her cheek, dropping into the ash like a tiny forgotten offering. She closed her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry you suffered because of me." A soft wind drifted through the house, brushing against her like a gentle touch. For a moment, it felt familiar, warm, comforting, like the way her father used to touch her hair when she cried as a child. Emily smiled faintly through her tears. "Thank you for protecting me, for helping me let go." The wind faded. She stood up, wiping her face. Something caught her eye. Near the far wall, half buried in dust, lay a small object. Her heart clenched. No, it couldn't be. She walked toward it slowly. A broken porcelain fragment glinted faintly in the light, a piece no bigger than her thumb. She knelt and picked it up. It was a shard of the doll, but it was empty. No glow, no darkness, no whisper, just dead porcelain. Cold and smooth. Emily exhaled shakily. A part of her had feared the doll would return, that the house's death wasn't final, that something would linger, waiting for her to slip, to doubt, to fear. But this fragment held no power. "Goodbye," she whispered to it. She stood and looked around the house one final time. It looked smaller now, lonelier, not haunted but forgotten, a relic of a childhood she had survived rather than lived. Emily walked to the front door. With each step, her boots kicked up dust that danced in the sunlight. The doorknob felt cold against her hand, real, unmoving, simple. She turned it. The door opened to the outside world. Fresh air hit her like a cleansing wave. The sky was bright, the grass dry and golden, the trees swaying gently in the wind. She stepped outside, letting sunlight warm her face. But something stopped her. A whisper not eerie, Not supernatural, just a memory brushing through her mind like a closing chapter. "You're not losing me. You're letting me rest." Emily looked back at the house one last time. "Rest," she whispered. "Both of you." She dropped the porcelain fragment onto the porch. It hit the wood softly and rolled to a stop. Then she walked down the steps and toward her car parked by the old dirt road. As she reached the car door, she paused. The wind rustled gently through the trees. No whispers, no footsteps, no tapping, just wind. She opened the car door, slid inside, and finally allowed herself a full breath. A deep, cleansing inhale that reached the parts of her that had lived in fear for too many years. She turned on the ignition. The engine hummed. Emily placed her hands on the steering wheel, staring down the empty road ahead. And for the first time, the future didn't scare her. She drove away from the house, not running, not escaping, but leaving it behind forever. The road stretched ahead in a thin, winding line of cracked asphalt, disappearing into the horizon beneath a washed-out morning sky. Emily's hands gripped the steering wheel more tightly than she meant to, knuckles white, veins visible beneath her skin. She had expected to feel triumphant, free, delivered from a nightmare she had carried for nearly 2 decades. But freedom felt heavy, like a weight she didn't know how to hold. Glancing in the rearview mirror, she watched the house shrink into the distance, small, silent, defeated. The roof sagged, the windows stared blankly. The porch leaned as if exhausted. It looked nothing like the living monster she'd battled inside her mind. Nothing like the cage that once consumed her family. Just a forgotten building rotting in the woods. Emily's breath trembled. "It's over," she whispered again, but her voice didn't sound convinced. The road curved gently, nearly swallowed by tall pines on both sides. Sunlight cut through the branches in long, broken beams, flickering like memories she wished she could forget. A soft buzzing came from her car speakers. Static. Emily frowned. She hadn't turned the radio on. The static grew louder, crisp, sharp, unnatural. A cold prickle crawled up her arms. "No," she whispered, reaching to shut the radio off. But before her fingers touched the knob, the static shifted. It became a faint tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Her heart stopped. The tapping continued, steady, familiar like porcelain knuckles against wood. Emily slammed her hand on the radio, turning it completely off. The sound vanished instantly. She exhaled shakily. "You're imagining it," she told herself. "It's over, it's over, it's over." But the knot in her stomach didn't ease. Up ahead, the road widened into a small clearing, Miller's Creek, the same stretch where they had found her wandering barefoot 17 years ago. A faded wooden sign hung crookedly on a rusted post. She slowed the car. Memories seeped through the cracks of her mind, her small feet stumbling through mud, her hands covered in soot and ash, her mother's screams, the doll's glow in the darkness. She pulled off the road and parked near the creek. The silence was unsettling. Birds chirped somewhere far away. Wind ruffled the trees. Water trickled softly over smooth stones. Normal, completely normal. Yet every inch of her body felt alert, aware. Emily stepped out of the car. The air smelled of wet earth and pine needles. She walked slowly toward the creek, her boots crunching over dry leaves. A faint breeze brushed her neck. She heard something behind her. A soft click, like something stepping onto gravel. She froze, turned slowly. Nothing. Her car stood silent. The trees swayed peacefully. The world appeared undisturbed. She forced herself to breathe and crouched near the water. Her reflection rippled in the stream-tired eyes. Tangled hair, smudges of ash and dirt still clinging to her skin. "You're safe now," she told her reflection. "You survived." But the reflection didn't match her tone. Its eyes seemed darker, sadder, almost like they weren't entirely her own. Emily blinked hard. When she opened her eyes, her reflection was normal again. She exhaled. "You need sleep," she muttered. Just as she stood up, her phone buzzed. She flinched so hard she nearly dropped it. The screen lit up. Unknown number. One new voicemail. Emily frowned. She hadn't had signal near this creek in years. The screen flickered strangely as she tapped the notification. Voicemail playing. A burst of static filled her ear. Then a tiny voice whispered through the distortion. "Emily." She stumbled back, heart slamming against her ribs. "No, no, no." The voice returned clearer now, unmistakable. "You left me." Emily threw the phone onto the ground, trembling violently. Her breathing turned sharp, shallow, her vision blurred with terror and disbelief. "It's impossible," she whispered. "I ended it. I ended all of it." She backed away, boot slipping on wet soil. A deep shadow fell over the creek. Emily looked up. The sky was still bright. The sun still climbed above the treetops. But her shadow, the one cast on the water beside her, was wrong. It wasn't standing like she was. It wasn't shaped like her body. It stood slightly hunched, its arms too long, its head tilted with an unnatural curve, and its hands. Its hands were holding something small, something shaped like a doll. Emily stumbled backward, tripping over a root, her shadow's head tilted farther, too far, its neck bending like soft porcelain. "No," she whispered. "It isn't real. You're gone. You're gone." The shadow moved, even though she hadn't. Its arm raised slowly, lifting the doll-shaped silhouette toward the sky. Emily backed away, pulse roaring in her ears. She grabbed her phone from the ground with shaking hands and stared at the screen. Her voicemail icon blinked again. Another new message. Then another. Then another. 4 messages in total, all from unknown. Emily stared in horror as the first transcription loaded automatically. Voicemail 1003. "You left me." Voicemail 2002. "You can't run." Voicemail 30002. "I remember." Emily staggered backward until she hit the trunk of a tree. Her phone buzzed. A new transcription appeared. Voicemail 4. Voicemail 4004. "Turn around." Emily's breath caught in her throat. Slowly, terrified, she raised her eyes from the phone and looked at her shadow. It wasn't alone anymore. Something was standing in front of it, blocking the sunlight. Something small, something broken, something she had destroyed. Porcelain glinted in the sunlight. Her shadow stretched toward it. Emily's heart stopped. The doll stood 3 feet away, cracked, burned, darkness seeping from its fractures. But I thought, she whispered. The doll lifted its head. Its empty eye sockets stared at her. You let me go, it whispered. But I didn't let you go. Emily's legs nearly collapsed beneath her. Her breath hitched in jagged gasps as she stared at the burned, cracked porcelain doll standing only a few feet away. Sunlight spilled across the clearing, but somehow it didn't touch the doll. The shadows around it gathered unnaturally, thickening like ink pooling on the forest floor. This isn't possible, Emily whispered. Her throat felt raw. Her voice was barely her own. The doll tilted its ruined head, porcelain flaking off like dying skin. You released me, it whispered. But you didn't sever what you carried. Emily shook her head, stepping backward toward the car. No, I broke the wish. I destroyed the core. I let you go. I let you go. A soft, childlike laugh bubbled from the doll, weak, brittle, echoing like broken glass tumbling down stone. You think breaking something ends it. Its voice sharpened. You think letting go erases what was created. Emily's back hit the car door. Her hand groped blindly for the handle, but the metal was burning hot. She yelped and jerked her hand away. The doll took one slow step forward. A crack snapped through its leg. Darkness leaked from the fracture like smoke. When you wished me real, it whispered. You created a shape for your loneliness. A body, a shadow, a name. The air around Emily grew heavy, so heavy she felt her knees trembling beneath the weight. The sunlight dimmed, swallowed by a spreading gloom that stretched outward from the doll like a stain. Emily forced her voice out. I don't accept you anymore. I refuse you. You're not real. But I was, the doll said. I protected you in the fire. I hid you when the house awakened. I waited for you while you grew up and forgot me. Emily's chest tightened painfully. I didn't forget, she whispered. I was terrified. You were never terrified of me. The doll leaned its head slowly to the side. You were terrified of what you made. Emily froze. The doll lifted one delicate, cracked hand and pointed at her shadow on the ground. Her shadow moved, not with her, not following her. It moved separately. It reached out, stretched its arms, and revealed something Emily hadn't noticed. Her shadow was holding the doll. The doll stepped closer. You brought me back. No, Emily whispered, shaking her head violently. No, I didn't. Her shadow twisted violently, as though pulled by invisible strings. The silhouette of the doll in its hands glowed faintly, like a spark being reignited. Emily felt a cold pulse surge through her chest. Something ancient, something familiar, something she thought she buried. What is happening? She gasped. What do you want from me? The doll's voice turned tender, almost soothing. You left a piece of your wish behind. Emily's breath trembled. The doll continued, voice lowering into a whisper that crawled beneath her skin. When you shattered the core, you freed me, but the core also freed something in you. The air thickened. Emily felt faint. Her skin prickled with cold. Her limbs felt heavy, foreign. Her shadow stood up taller than her, stretching up the trunk of a nearby tree, elongated into something monstrous. Her stomach dropped. The shadow wasn't her shape anymore. It had changed. Its arms were too long, its hands too narrow, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It looked like... No! It looked like the doll. Emily tried to run, but the moment she moved, her shadow didn't follow. Instead, it stepped forward on its own, separating from her feet like oil separating from water. She stared in horror as it peeled away from the ground, rising, stretching, forming a body made not of bone or flesh, but of darkness shaped like smooth porcelain. Her shadow had become a second doll. The original doll spoke softly. "You can destroy me 1,000 times, but the part of you that made me will always remain." The shadow doll turned its head toward Emily. Its eyes glowed a faint, sickly white. Emily backed against the car, shaking so hard she could barely stand. "No. Please, I don't want this. I don't want any of this." Her own shadow responded, voice echoing with a strange, layered resonance. "You made this," Emily screamed. She lunged into the driver's seat, locking the door and fumbling desperately with the keys. The ignition clicked. The engine coughed. Once, twice, refused to start. "No, come on." The porcelain doll reached the window. It placed a hand against the glass. Darkness spread from its palm, cracking the window like cold frost spreading across ice. "You should not run," it whispered. "We are bound." Emily slammed her foot on the pedal even though the engine wasn't running. "Go away." The shadow doll appeared beside it, tall, smooth, expressionless, its shape bending the sunlight around it. Emily twisted the keys again. The engine roared to life. Before the dolls could react, she slammed the car into reverse, skidding backward through gravel and leaves. The force jerked her violently against the seatbelt. The porcelain doll stumbled, cracks deepening. Her shadow doll flickered, its shape distorting. Emily kicked the car into drive. She didn't look back, but she heard them. A scraping sound, like porcelain dragging across asphalt, like something running after her. She floored the gas. The trees blurred. Her heartbeat thundered. But over everything, over the engine, over her pulse, over her screaming breath, she heard the doll's voice carry through the forest. "You can't outrun your shadow, Emily." Her phone buzzed violently from the passenger seat. Another voicemail. Her blood turned to ice as the automatic transcription popped up on the screen. Voicemail 0003. "I'm closer than you think." Emily's foot stayed glued to the gas pedal as the car tore down the forest road, gravel spraying like shrapnel behind her tires. Her fingers clamped around the steering wheel so tightly she couldn't feel the blood in them. Her breath came in ragged bursts, each inhale sharper than the last. She didn't dare look in the mirrors, not because she didn't want to see, but because she already felt it. The presence chasing her, a shadow not cast by sunlight, a crack not held by porcelain, something she created but could never unmake. Branches whipped across the windshield as she sped through the twisting road. The world blurred into streaks of green, brown, and violent sunlight. Her heartbeat pounded louder than the engine, louder than the screeching gravel, and still the scraping continued, faint at first, then clearer, like porcelain feet dragging across pavement. Skirch, skirch, skirch. Her pulse leapt painfully. "No!" she screamed, slamming her hand against the dashboard. "Stay away from me." But the scraping only grew louder. Her phone buzzed violently again in the passenger seat. Another voicemail. She refused to look. She couldn't. The road narrowed suddenly. 2 steep drop-offs on each side, like a throat closing around her path. Sunlight flickered like a strobe through passing branches. Emily leaned forward, white-knuckled. "Come on, come on." She hit 60 mph, then 70. The forest blurred into a single trembling smear, but the road wasn't ending. She'd driven this road before she knew it well. It should have opened to the county highway by now. Instead, the trees seemed to lean inward, closing in, trapping her inside a corridor of twisting branches and relentless shadow. The road was repeating. Her breath caught. No, 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 this isn't real. This can't. She rounded a sharp corner and saw it again. The same crooked wooden sign, the same dead clearing, Miller's Creek. She slammed the brakes. The tires screeched violently, smoking against the asphalt. The car fishtailed, skidding sideways until it came to a shuddering halt. In the exact same spot she had fled from minutes ago. Her chest rose and fell in painful waves. Her vision swam. Her mind reeled. "I can't be back here," she whispered. "I can't be back here." A tap sounded on her window. 1 gentle tap, then 2, then 3. Emily's scream stuck in her throat like a lump of ice. Her head turned mechanically slow, unwilling toward the sound. The porcelain doll stood inches from her window, but it wasn't alone. Her shadow stood behind it, detached, independent, towering over the doll, its elongated limbs trembling like wet tar dripping into shape. Emily fumbled for the gear shift, shoving the car into reverse. The engine roared, but the car didn't move. Her breath hitched. She pushed harder. Nothing. The wheels spun uselessly, as if the road had turned to glue. The forest air thickened around the vehicle, bending the sunlight into strange, unnatural angles. Her phone buzzed. Another voicemail, then another, 4 in a row. Her voice shook as she picked up the phone. The screen flickered, glitched, then displayed the first transcription. Voicemail 1002. "I found you." Voicemail 2003. "You're still mine." Voicemail 3003. "Stop running." Emily's pulse hammered at her ribs. The screen glitched again, loading the 4th transcription. Voicemail 4005. "Look up." Her eyes snapped upward, and her heart collapsed. The shadow doll's hand was pressed flat against the windshield. On the inside, Emily screamed and shoved herself backward so hard her head hit the headrest. Tears blurred her vision. The heat of her panic crushed her lungs. "No, no, get out of my car. Get out." The shadow doll didn't move. It didn't need to. Its face, twisted silhouette could be called a face tilted downward. peering at her with glowing white eye slits formed from pure negative space. Behind it, her original porcelain doll crawled onto the hood, its movements jerky but purposeful. Darkness spilled from its fractures, dripping onto the glass. The shadow doll whispered, voice layered with dozens of tones, "You brought us with you." Emily shook her head violently. I didn't, please just stop." The porcelain doll's voice followed, fragile and trembling. "You can't leave yourself behind, Emily." The shadow doll lifted its hand and tapped the windshield. Tap, tap, tap. The glass splintered. A long crack split down the middle like a spider web. Emily slammed the car into drive. This time, the tires caught traction. The car lurched forward. The shadow doll clung to the windshield, its limbs stretching like thick, dripping ink. The porcelain doll slid along the hood, screaming as the car accelerated. Emily floored the gas. The car shot forward, straight toward the wooden sign. The porcelain doll flew off the hood, hitting the dirt with a sickening snap. But the shadow doll, it stayed. It never lost its grip. Emily swerved violently, trying to shake it loose. The forest blurred. Branches scraped the car, her vision filled with motion and screaming fear. The shadow doll finally lost its grip, peeling off and tumbling across the road like a smear of liquid darkness. Emily didn't slow. She didn't breathe. She didn't look back. The forest road twisted again, but ahead, she saw something new. A thin break in the trees, a stripe of clear blue sky, an exit. Her pulse soared. Yes, yes, please. The car broke through the tree line, the sunlight exploding across the hood, but her hope died instantly, because the road ahead wasn't a highway, it wasn't a town, it wasn't even a real road. It was the same forest, the same clearing, the same crooked sign, Miller's Creek. She was trapped in a loop, and the doll's voice rose behind her, whispering from everywhere. From the trees, from the road, from the air itself. You can't escape what you are. Emily slammed both palms against the steering wheel, her scream muffled by the closed windows and the crushing weight of panic. Her chest felt tight, too tight, as if invisible fingers were wrapping around her lungs. This wasn't possible. This wasn't real. It couldn't be happening. But the road in front of her didn't lie. The crooked Miller's Creek sign, the same stretch of withered grass, the same stagnant air, like time itself had been nailed in place. No, 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 let me out, she screamed. Her voice cracked, her breath shattered. She forced the car into reverse again, tires screeching, dirt spraying. She whipped the steering wheel violently and tore down the forest road in the opposite direction. Branches slapped the windshield. Sunlight strobed through the canopy. The engine roared. The scraping noise returned almost immediately. Scutch, scutch, scutch. Her pulse spiked. She didn't have to look to know. The shadow doll was following. The forest twisted sharply, and Emily swerved hard, nearly clipping a tree trunk. Her eyes burned with tears as the road curved left, right, downhill, uphill. But every turn led to the same suffocating clearing, the same crooked sign, the same trap. She slammed the brakes again, skidding sideways in a plume of dust. The car stopped exactly where it had moments before. It's not real, Emily whispered. shaking. "It's not real. It's not real." A soft click came from the back seat. Emily froze. Her blood turned to ice. Slowly terrified, she turned her head. The porcelain doll sat upright in the middle of the back seat, its cracked face twisted into something that might have once resembled a smile. Emily screamed and threw herself out of the driver's seat, stumbling backward until she hit the dirt. She scrambled onto her hands and knees, gasping as if the forest air were water, and she was drowning in it. The car door creaked open. Slowly, the doll stepped out. Its movements were wrong, stiff but purposeful. It left tiny prints in the dirt dark, smudged, almost burned into the ground. "Stop," Emily whispered, pushing herself farther away. "Please stop." The doll tilted its head. "Why are you sad?" it asked in a gentle, childlike voice. "You came back to me. The loop makes sure of it." "The loop," Emily cried. "What loop? What do you want?" Its left eye fell from its socket, rolling onto the grass. Darkness dripped from the hollow space like ink. "You," the doll whispered. "I want you." Emily trembled. "I destroyed you. I destroyed everything that brought you to life." "You destroyed the house," the doll said. "You destroyed the core." It stepped closer. "But you didn't destroy the reason you made me." Emily's pulse hammered her skull. "What reason?" The shadow behind the doll wavered, then detached, rising, tall, long-limbed, empty-faced, a silhouette carved from pure night. Her shadow. Emily's breath shuddered. "No, don't show me." But the shadow moved. It raised its arms, and the world shifted. Suddenly, Emily wasn't in the clearing. She was 8 years old again, standing beside the fireplace, crying, alone, small hands trembling as she clutched a freshly gifted doll. She watched from outside her own body as the child. Emily whispered, "I wish you were real, so I don't have to be alone anymore." The memory shattered. The clearing snapped back into focus. Emily collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. No, stop showing me that." The doll's voice softened. "You wished for me. You asked for me. You created me from your loneliness, your fear, your need for something to stay. I was a child," Emily screamed. "And children," the doll whispered, "create the strongest monsters." The shadow loomed behind it, stretching across the clearing like a stain. The sunlight warped around it, bending unnaturally. Emily stumbled back toward the creek. Her boots slipped on moss, and she crashed onto the bank, water splashing onto her hands. "I don't want you," she whispered through shaking breaths. "I don't want any of this." "But you do," the doll said, "because without me, what are you?" "I am me," Emily roared. The doll stepped so close she could feel the cold radiating from its porcelain skin. Its voice dropped to a whisper. "Then prove it." A violent wind blasted through the clearing, ripping leaves off branches, sending water rippling in spirals, howling like a scream torn from the earth itself. The shadow doll rushed toward her. Emily scrambled up, heart exploding in her chest. She ran along the creek, slipping, falling, clawing at trees to stay upright. But the forest didn't stay still. It shifted around her, trees rearranging, paths bending, sunlight twisting into impossible angles. She ran anyway, Branches cut her arms. Her lungs burned with every breath. Her heartbeat throbbed like it was trying to break out of her chest. The scraping followed her, pouring across the forest floor like a tide of porcelain shards. Skirt, skirt, skr. She crashed through the underbrush and burst into another clearing. Not Miller's Creek, something different, something worse. A circle of dead trees, all pointing inward at a single object lying in the center. A cracked, burnt mirror. Emily froze. The porcelain doll and the shadow stepped into the clearing behind her. "This," the doll whispered, "is your truth." Emily stared at the mirror. Her reflection warped, twisted, melting into a shape that wasn't hers. No, it was hers. Her shadow, her monster, her wish. Emily took a shaking step backward. The doll extended its hand. "Come see what you really are." Emily froze at the edge of the dead clearing, breath trembling, heart clawing at her chest like a trapped animal. The ring of twisted trees loomed overhead, their bare branches arching inward like skeletal arms reaching toward the cracked mirror lying in the center. The mirror was wrong, not just broken, but scorched, warped, its glass rippling like molten metal that had been forced into a shape it hated. Its surface flickered faintly, not with light, but with something like a pulse. Her pulse. Behind her, the porcelain doll stepped into the clearing, its cracked limbs clicking softly. Her shadow, now completely separate from her, glided forward like a creature made of night. Its elongated form hovered just above the ground, each movement too smooth, too gentle, too horrifying. "Go on," the doll whispered, its voice trembling with exhilaration and grief. "Look." Emily shook her head violently. "No, I have had enough. This ends now." "It can't end," the doll whispered. "Not until you see what you truly carry." Her shadow leaned toward the mirror, its long fingers brushing across the scorched frame. Darkness rippled under the glass like ink swirling beneath water. Emily stumbled backward. "I don't want to see. I don't want to." The doll tilted its head. "You already know. You've always known." Emily's breath stuttered. "No." But the doll's voice softened, almost tender. "When you were a child, you didn't make me out of loneliness alone." The clearing darkened. Clouds swallowed the sun. A cold wind curled around her ankles. "You made me from fear," the doll whispered, "and guilt." Emily's throat tightened. "Stop!" "You made me from the parts of yourself you refused to feel, and when the house burned, you created a shadow of yourself instead." Her shadow turned toward her slowly, its face a blank porcelain mask made of pure darkness. Emily felt herself shrinking inside her own skin. "That's not me," she whispered. "It can't be me." The doll stepped closer. "Look!" The mirror flashed, and Emily saw herself. Not the adult Emily, not the girl she remembered, but a version of herself she never knew existed. A small child, sitting in a dark hallway, hugging her knees, rocking back and forth, whispering to herself, "It's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault." Emily's breath shattered. "Stop. Please stop." The doll stepped beside the mirror, its voice gentle now, a haunting echo of the child Emily once was. "You blamed yourself for everything, for the fire, for your father, for the way the house changed." "No," Emily whispered, clutching her chest. No, I didn't know, I didn't understand. Her shadow moved toward the mirror, pressing its long black hand against the glass. The reflection shuddered violently, as if trying to escape. You didn't need to understand, the doll said. You only needed to feel. Emily fell to her knees. Tears burned down her cheeks. I didn't make you, she whispered. I couldn't have made something like you. Her shadow lifted its head at her, its faceless visage curling into the faintest impression of a smile. You made me when you needed someone to blame, the shadow said in a voice that sounded like her own, but deeper, twisted, broken. Emily clamped her hands over her ears. Stop talking. Stop it. The porcelain doll knelt in front of her, placing one cracked hand on the ground as if kneeling before a shrine. You created your shadow the night you burned the house, it whispered. You gave me shape, but you gave it purpose. The mirror pulsed like a heartbeat. Emily forced herself to look up and saw something that made her blood freeze. Her reflection was crying, not in the real world, in the mirror. Its tears dripped backward, upward, toward the top of the frame, and then her reflection smiled. Emily scrambled away so fast, she nearly tore her palms on the rough earth. No. Her reflection pressed its palm against the inside of the mirror, its smile widening unnaturally. Her own voice echoed from the glass. You can't run from what you left behind. The porcelain doll stepped aside. The shadow leaned closer. The mirror rippled like water. Emily sobbed. I didn't mean to leave anything. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted to be okay. And that, the doll whispered, is why you created us. Emily stared, trembling. Her mind spun in circles, her past and present folding over each other. The doll reached out its hand. You created me to stay. You created your shadow to remember. And you created the mirror to hide the part of yourself that blamed you. Emily's voice cracked. So what do you want now? The doll's broken face softened. There's only one way to stop the loop. Emily froze. The forest went silent. Her shadow leaned in, looming over her. The doll whispered, you must take back what you gave us. Emily blinked. Take back what? The doll pointed at the mirror. Your guilt. Emily felt the world tilt. No, I can't. You must, the doll said gently, or we will follow you forever. Emily stared at the mirror, at the twisted version of herself smiling back, at the child she once was, at the monster she created, at the guilt she buried. Her heartbeat pounded, her vision blurred. Her knees shook. She took one step toward the mirror. The shadow leaned closer. The doll whispered, take it back and end this. Emily reached out her hand and touched the glass. When Emily's fingertips touched the mirror, the world didn't shatter. It opened. The scorched glass rippled beneath her skin, like the surface of a black lake disturbed by a single raindrop. A cold shock pulsed through her arm, racing up her veins like liquid ice. She gasped and tried to pull away, but the mirror held her. It pulled her. Her reflection's hand reached forward and clasped hers tightly from the other side, fingers cold and impossibly strong. Emily screamed. Her voice echoed across the dead clearing, rattling through the skeletal trees. The porcelain doll and her shadow stepped closer, watching, waiting, but neither interfered. Her reflection leaned forward inside the glass, smiling with lips that weren't hers, eyes gleaming with something ancient and hungry. You tried to bury me, it whispered. You tried to forget me. Emily struggled, chest tightening, heart pounding so violently she felt it in her teeth. Let go, she cried. Her reflection cocked its head. But I am you. The glass rippled violently. Everything inside the mirror erupted in movement. Dark tendrils of ink spiraling upward. Childhood memories splintering like broken film. A younger Emily screaming silently. Shadows crawling across the walls of her mind. Her reflection pulled harder. Emily's feet lifted off the ground. Her body dragged inch by inch toward the mirror's surface. The porcelain doll whispered, "Take it back, or it takes you." Emily felt herself slipping, her strength draining, her breath shortening, her vision narrowing. "No, I won't. I won't go back." Her reflection sneered. "Then stop pretending you're innocent." And with a violent yank, Emily was pulled into the mirror. Inside the mirror, she hit the ground hard. Not dirt, not forest, not floorboards. Something soft like ash or powdered bone. Emily pushed herself up slowly, coughing on the cold dust that filled the air. She was inside a vast, monochrome void. Shadows drifted like smoke. Fragments of memories floated midair. A broken doll's head, a burning doorway, childhood drawings, her father's flickering silhouette. The air itself vibrated with whispers. Emily spun around and froze. Her reflection stood a few feet away, not behind glass, not trapped. Here, it was free. It had Emily's face, but pale, cracked, distorted with thin black veins crawling beneath the skin. Its eyes opened wider, pupils dilated into swirling voids. "You blamed everyone but yourself," it said softly. "You blamed the doll. You blamed the house. You blamed the fire." Emily shook her head, backing away. "No, that's not true. I blamed myself for everything." Her reflection's eyes hardened. "But you buried that guilt. You refused to feel it. You pushed it into shadow." Emily gasped as something cold wrapped around her ankle. She looked down. Her shadow had her. The long, ink-dark hand squeezed tightly, its grip cold enough to numb her skin. It rose slowly from the ground, limbs stretching upward like black vines twisting around her legs. Waist, chest. Emily struggled. "Let me go." Her ghostly double stepped closer, shadows swirling at its feet. "You buried me," it said. "Now I bury you." The shadow tightened. Emily choked. Her knees buckled. "No, I'm not afraid of you anymore." Her reflection laughed soft, hollow, cruel. "You're terrified." The entire void shuddered. Cracks tore through the air like fractures in reality itself. Behind her reflection, the shape of the house materialized, a ghostly silhouette with empty windows and doors like yawning mouths. Each window blinked like an eye. "You created a story to survive," her reflection whispered. "A monster to fear, so you wouldn't have to face the truth." Emily's pulse hammered. "What truth?" Her reflection's voice darkened. "That you lit the match." Emily froze. Everything inside her went silent. Her breath, her thoughts, her pulse. "No," she whispered. "No, I didn't. I would never." The reflection raised a hand. A memory formed behind it, like a shadow play projected onto smoke. Young Emily stood before the fireplace, shaking, crying, but her mother wasn't screaming in the background. No one else was shouting. It was silent, completely silent. Because Emily had lit the fire alone, to destroy the doll, to destroy what she had created, to undo the wish she regretted the moment it came true. Emily's legs gave out. The shadow held her upright, its ink-dark limbs coiling around her like a serpent claiming its prey. "I was a child," Emily whispered. "I was scared." Her reflection knelt in front of her. That fear didn't go away. It grew. It fed on your silence. And it became me. The void pulsed, as if the whole mirror world inhaled. Emily felt her chest burning, guilt ripping through her like claws. The reflection leaned forward, touching its forehead to hers. "Take me back," it whispered. "Feel the guilt. Accept what you did." Emily sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Say it." The reflection hissed. Emily choked. I lit the fire." The void trembled. "I made the wish." Cracks spread across the reflection's pale face. "I created the house." The shadow loosened. "I created the doll." The reflection shattered, breaking apart into 1,000 shards of black and white light. Emily screamed, not from pain, but from release. The shadow melted off her body, dripping to the floor like spilled ink. She stood shakily, breath ragged, and, for the first time, she didn't run from what she felt. Slowly, the void brightened, turning from black to gray, to soft, aching white. The porcelain doll's voice echoed faintly, distant. "You've taken it back." Emily stumbled forward. The mirror world collapsed around her like falling glass. She reached for the light and was pulled back into the real world. Emily hit the ground with a force that rattled through her bones. The world came rushing back in a violent blur color. Weight, sound, breath. Her knees scraped against rough dirt. Her palms slapped the earth. Her lungs spasmed as real air tore into them. She coughed, gasping, trembling. The mirror clearing was still around her, but different, brighter, quieter, less suffocating. The dead trees creaked slowly in the wind instead of leaning inward like they were hungry. The cracked mirror lay shattered before her, pieces strewn across the forest floor like scattered teeth. She pushed herself upright on shaking arms. Her heart hammered painfully. Her vision pulsed. Her skin felt like it no longer fit her body. But she was back in the real world. She looked down and saw her own shadow beneath her again, attached to her feet, unmoving, normal, not long-limbed, not alive, not separate. A sob tore from her throat, sharp and broken. "Thank you," she whispered to no one, to everyone, to herself, but the peace didn't last. A soft, brittle sound crackled behind her, like porcelain shifting. Emily froze. Her blood ran cold. Slowly, she turned. The porcelain doll lay on the ground near the edge of the clearing. Broken, cracked, face half missing. Its body collapsed inward like something hollowed out. Smoke still curled faintly from its fractures. Her chest tightened. "No, you're supposed to be gone." A faint voice drifted from the doll, barely audible, like the quietest note played on a broken violin. "Emily." She staggered backward. No. I took it back. I accepted everything. You're not supposed to be here." The doll didn't move, didn't lift its head, didn't open its single remaining eye. But its voice, its tiny, trembling, childlike voice slipped into the air. "You didn't release me." Emily's throat went tight. "I did," she whispered. "I let go of my fear, my guilt. I took responsibility." "You're done." The doll's cracked jaw quivered, porcelain grinding softly. "You released your guilt." Another crack spread down its cheek, "But you kept your promise." Emily's heart lurched. What promise? The doll's remaining eye, dull, barely reflective, shifted toward her. "You wished for me, and wishes don't disappear. They return." Emily shook her head, voice splintering. "No, I broke the wish. You broke the house." The doll corrected weakly, "But not the wish." The clearing darkened. A thin wind began to circle around them, stirring the dust, rattling loose branches. Emily's skin prickled. "Wishes can break," she insisted. "I know they can. Not yours." The doll whispered, "You made your wish with more than words." Emily backed away as the wind sharpened around her like invisible blades. The doll continued, "You made it with fear, with loneliness, with desperation, with your heart." Emily stumbled over a root, catching herself just in time. Behind the doll, her shadow stretched unnaturally long again, but still attached, as if something beneath it wanted to return to form. The doll's voice softened into a near whimper. "And when you made me, I wasn't just a friend. I was your protection." Emily's pulse roared. "My protection from what?" The doll finally lifted its head, its voice fractured. "From yourself." The world seemed to tilt. Emily swallowed hard. "I don't need protection anymore. I'm not that child. I can live without you." The doll's body trembled violently. Porcelain flakes fell like snow. "You think it's that easy?" it whispered. "You think healing is a switch you can flip. You think acceptance kills the parts of you that you created to survive." Emily's eyes stung with tears. "I don't want you to suffer anymore." The doll let out a tiny, broken laugh. "I'm not suffering. I'm fading." Emily froze. The doll's voice weakened further, dissolving at the edges. "When you took your guilt back, you took me with it." Emily's breath caught. Her knees weakened. The doll continued, voice now faint as mist. "I wasn't just your monster. I was your coping, your shield, your shadow when you had none." "No," Emily whispered, falling to her knees. "Don't say that. You're not I was never meant to be real," the doll said softly. "I was meant to hold your pain until you grew strong enough to hold it yourself." Emily sobbed. "Then let me release you. Let me set you free." A faint glow flickered inside the doll's cracked chest cavity, a tiny ember, warm and gold. Her father's light. Emily's breath trembled. The doll whispered, "You already have." Its body began to collapse inward, porcelain dissolving into powder, cracks widening like fractures in a dying star, its voice drifting away like a sigh. "You survived me, so you don't need me anymore." Emily crawled forward desperately, reaching out. "Wait, please don't go." The doll's final words brushed against her fingers like a fading warmth. "You let me rest." Then it crumbled completely. completely. Nothing remained but dust. The clearing fell silent. Emily bowed her head over the pile of porcelain dust and cried, not from fear, not from guilt, but from release. She stayed there a long time, breathing, hurting, healing. Finally, she wiped her tears, stood shakily, and turned toward the forest's edge. The path looked real now, different, open. She stepped forward. Her shadow followed, just a shadow, nothing more. Emily moved through the forest as if learning to walk again. Every step felt uncertain, not because she feared something would attack her, but because she was afraid of what she would leave behind. The clearing grew smaller behind her, its ring of dead trees fading into the shadows. The morning air tasted different now, cleaner, sharper, threaded with a breeze that no longer whispered her name. The weight that had wrapped around her spine for years felt lighter, almost gone, but not entirely. Grief and relief tangled in her chest like vines. She glanced down. Her shadow stayed beside her feet, not stretched, not distorted, just normal. She placed a trembling hand over her heart. Her pulse throbbed, heavy but steady. For the first time in her life, Emily Walker felt like her heartbeat belonged fully to her. She followed the narrow trail through the pines, their branches swaying gently overhead. Light trickled through the canopy in soft, scattered beams, warming the back of her neck. The forest no longer felt alive in the wrong way. It felt alive in the right one. Still, a part of her remained twisted with unease, not fear, not terror, but the hollow ache that follows after a wound finally stops bleeding. She whispered into the quiet, "I'm still here." The trees didn't respond. No cracking porcelain, no shifting shadows, no voices calling her name, just the forest breathing. Her footsteps carried her toward the edge of the woods, where the trees thinned and the distant countryside stretched out in rolling fields, bathed in warm sunlight. It looked peaceful, honest, real. Emily exhaled softly. Maybe this was what freedom felt like. She stepped out of the tree line and then stopped. The wind shifted suddenly, brushing past her ear like a gentle hiss. But it wasn't a whisper, it wasn't a voice. It was memory, the faintest trace of her father's warmth, the last glow from the doll's chest, the echo of the shadow that once protected her. Emily closed her eyes and let the wind sweep over her. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll carry the rest." She opened her eyes again and froze. On the ground before her, half buried beneath pine needles and dirt, lay a single porcelain shard. White, smooth, perfectly clean, not cracked, not burned, untouched. Her heart seized in her chest. "No," she breathed. "It can't be." She knelt and picked it up. The shard was warm, warm. Her hands trembled. Her throat tightened. "Why?" she whispered, but the forest remained still. Emily swallowed hard, pushing herself to her feet. The shard glinted faintly in the sunlight, reflecting a tiny distorted piece of her face. She forced a shaky breath. "It's just a piece," she told herself. "A remnant, nothing more." But doubt crept in at the edges of her mind. Not the kind born from fear, but the kind born from not knowing if healing leaves traces behind. She slipped the shard into her jacket pocket just as she turned to to leave, a distant sound echoed through the woods. Not porcelain, not shadow. Laughter. Children's laughter. Light, airy, innocent. Emily froze. The laughter drifted again, carried by the wind from deeper in the forest, not from where she came, but from somewhere else entirely. Her pulse jumped. She stood perfectly still, listening. The laughter echoed once, twice, then faded into the rustle of leaves. Emily's breath trembled. She whispered to herself, "It's just the wind." But the wind didn't sound like that. She took a slow step back toward the open field, refusing to let fear dig its claws into her again. The forest behind her watched silently. She walked toward the road that cut across the countryside, an old broken asphalt lane leading far from the place where everything had happened. With every step she took, the porcelain shard in her pocket warmed further, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. Emily didn't look back, but the forest did, and from somewhere within its depths, unseen and unspoken, a tiny voice murmured, "Don't forget me." Emily stopped walking. Her heart stuttered. She turned halfway, not enough to face the forest, but enough to see the tree line over her shoulder. Silence, absolute silence. Sunlight streamed through the pines. Birds chirped. A breeze rustled the branches. Nothing moved. Emily shut her eyes. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with something else. Truth. "I won't," she whispered. She walked on. For the first time, the road didn't loop. It stretched forward, straight, open, free. The countryside road stretched before Emily like a promise, quiet, sun-warmed, completely ordinary. Nothing about it felt twisted or haunted or impossible. It was just a road, a real road, leading away from the forest, away from the house, away from the broken pieces of her past. But with every step she took, the porcelain shard in her jacket pocket pressed against her ribs, warmer, heavier, as if it were breathing. Emily walked faster. Her boots crunched against gravel. Her shadow moved naturally beside her. The wind brushed her hair like any normal breeze would, but the warmth didn't stop. It grew, slow, steady, insistent. She swallowed hard and reached into her pocket. The shard pulsed against her palm like something alive. "Stop!" she whispered, voice strained. "Please just stop." Shakia. But the warmth spread up her arm, crawling beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. Her steps faltered. She forced herself to keep going. "Don't look back," she whispered to herself. "Just keep walking." But the warmth intensified. And then the shard vibrated. Emily froze. "Don't," she whispered. "Please don't." The vibration deepened into a hum, a low, hollow sound that resonated through her bones. A sound she knew, the sound of porcelain cracking. "No!" She dropped the shard onto the road in panic. It hit the pavement with a soft clink and rolled in a small circle before settling. It glowed faintly. Emily backed away from it. "Stay away from me," she whispered. The shard pulsed brighter. The hum grew louder. The air around it shimmered, as if heat waves rose from a fire. Emily turned and walked, then jogged, then ran. Her breath tore through her chest. Her eyes stung with fear she thought she had buried forever. But the hum didn't fade. It followed her. It echoed behind her like footsteps. She ran harder, boots pounding the asphalt. Her vision blurred. Her heartbeat roared. When she finally dared to turn, the shard was no longer on the ground. Her stomach dropped. No, no, no. She looked frantically across the road, the grass, the ditches. Nothing. The shard had vanished. Emily's breath crashed unevenly from her lungs. Get a grip, she whispered. It's over. It's over. Then a child's giggle drifted through the air. Soft, high-pitched, familiar. Emily spun around so fast her neck popped. Nobody there, only the gentle sway of tall grass beside the road. A second giggle. Closer. Her skin crawled. Show yourself, she said hoarsely. I'm not afraid anymore. The wind whistled. But it wasn't the wind. It was breathing, slow, deliberate breathing. Behind her, Emily turned and froze. A small figure stood at the forest's edge, where she had exited moments earlier. Not the porcelain doll, not the shadow doll, not a monster at all. A child, a girl, 7 or 8 years old, barefoot, pale, hair tangled like she had run through a storm. Emily's breath caught because the girl looked exactly like her. Exactly. The same messy hair, the same small shoulders, the same trembling hands. Young Emily stared at her eyes wide, lips quivering. I didn't want to be alone, the child whispered. Emily felt her knees weaken. The girl took a tiny step forward. You left me in there. Emily's voice cracked. I didn't know how to help you. I was a child too. The little version of herself blinked slowly. Am I gone now? She asked in a trembling voice. Or did you only forget me? Emily covered her mouth with her trembling hand. The child. Emily looked frightened, but not like the child from her memories. She looked abandoned, left behind. Emily dropped to her knees, tears spilling. I didn't forget you, she whispered. I was scared of you. I was scared of what you carried. The little girl stepped closer, bare feet silent on the gravel. The warmth in the air intensified. Emily realized the shard hadn't disappeared. It had become this, her inner child, her forgotten self, the part of her that endured the fire, the guilt, the trauma. Not a monster, not a doll, a girl, her, the child. Emily reached out her hand. Can I come with you? She asked softly. Or will you leave me again? Emily sobbed. No, never again. She reached out, but before their hands touched, the girl dissolved into a swirl of glowing white dust. The dust spiraled delicately, drifting toward Emily, and sank gently into her chest. Warmth coursed through her. Not fear, not pain, but softness, forgiveness, her own. Emily pressed a hand against her heart. As her breath steadied, she whispered, You were never the monster. The wind blew softly. The road stretched ahead. Emily stood tall, her shadow steady and whole behind her. She took a deep breath, the first free breath of her life, and walked forward. But as she took her fourth step, a faint voice echoed in her mind, not threatening, not haunting, just small. Don't forget us. Emily closed her eyes, whispered back, I won't, and kept walking. Emily walked, not running, not stumbling, not dragged by shadows or haunted by dolls, just walking for the first time since her childhood. Each step belonged to her and her alone. The countryside unfolded ahead like a quiet promise, fields of yellowing grass, weathered fence posts, distant hills blurred by warm sunlight. But the world didn't feel empty. It felt attentive, like something unseen was watching her, not with hunger, but with recognition. She touched her chest where the glowing dust of her younger self had settled moments before. Her heartbeat felt fuller, louder, more grounded. She wasn't just walking away from the forest. She was walking toward a self she had spent decades trying to reach. A soft breeze curled around her, brushing the hair from her face. No whispers, no taps, just wind. Her boots thudded against the cracked asphalt, steady, real, rhythmic, like distant drums calling her forward. But after several minutes, a new sound joined that rhythm. The faintest tap, tap, tap. Emily's breath paused. She didn't stop walking. The tapping didn't come from behind. It didn't come from the side. It wasn't on the road. It came from inside the pocket of her jacket. Cold dread spread through her limbs. Slowly, mechanically, she reached into her pocket. Her fingers brushed something small, smooth, warm. She closed her eyes. "I saw you dissolve," she whispered to herself. "You're gone. You're gone." But the tapping continued against her palm, gentle, rhythmic, almost polite. Tap, tap, tap. Her throat tightened. Her pulse throbbed. She opened her eyes and drew her hand from her pocket. The porcelain shard lay in her palm, but it wasn't the same shard as before. The edges were smoother, the surface cleaner, the color brighter. The shard had grown, just a fraction, but enough. Emily felt her stomach twist. No, 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 no. A whisper brushed her ear, but it wasn't the doll. It wasn't her shadow. It wasn't even the child version of herself. It was her father's voice. Soft, warm, steady. Healing doesn't erase what happened, Emily. It only changes the shape of the pain. She closed her eyes, tears pressing behind them. "I know," she whispered, "but I thought letting go would take everything away." The wind bowed the tall grass on either side of the road. The sky shifted into a deeper blue. A crow circled overhead, calling once before drifting away. Emily looked at the shard again, only this time she didn't see a monster. She didn't see a curse. She didn't see the house. She saw a piece of her childhood. Broken, yes, but real. Something she couldn't simply destroy without destroying herself. She cupped the shard gently. "You're not him," she whispered. "You're not the house. You're not the doll. You're just a piece." Warmth radiated softly against her skin. Not unnatural, not wrong, just warm. A fragile warmth, like holding something that once hurt her and understanding it instead of fearing it. Emily slid the shard back into her pocket, not as a burden, but as acceptance. The road stretched forward. She walked. Minutes passed. The forest behind her shrank into a dark green blur. The world grew larger, brighter, wider. She breathed in deeply, air that didn't carry soot or whispers or guilt. For a moment, everything felt complete. But just as she reached the bend where the road curved out of sight, her shadow shifted slightly under the slant of the afternoon sun. Not in a monstrous way, just enough to catch her attention. Her heartbeat paused. Her shadow lifted its hand. Just once, as if waving goodbye. Emily froze, breath caught. It didn't move again, didn't peel away, didn't stretch or twist. It just returned to normal. Emily exhaled a shaky laugh. "Goodbye," she whispered. She turned and followed the road into the horizon, but as the sun lowered, casting long shadows ahead of her, the wind carried the faintest echo, so soft she couldn't be sure if it was real. A tiny voice, familiar, childlike, grateful. "Thank you for taking me with you." Emily didn't look back. She didn't need to. The past no longer chased her. It walked beside her, where it belonged. She kept moving forward, toward a tomorrow that finally felt like hers.